Hi, this is Larry Midas, Leadership Larry. I'm an independent business consultant, speaker, educator, podcaster, and author. And for the last 15 years, my primary focus working with business clients has been on leadership development. Today, we're going to talk about leadership moving forward. I'm thankful that you're here. Welcome to my home office studio. And speaking of strategy, we roll with the punches. So we might make mistakes. I might take a break. The phone might ring. Don't know what's going to happen, but glad you're here. So let's jump right into the topic. At any time after the presentation, if you want to reach out with questions, comments, or concerns about the content that was shared today, or if you'd like to discuss your particular leadership or business challenges with a trusted business advisor, feel free to reach out to me at leadershiplarry@gmail.com or the number on the screen, 716-901-4352. I also invite you to follow me on Spotify or listen to my podcasts on Google Podcast. So leadership, let's step back a little bit and put some ideas on the table with regard to, in general, how most people describe leadership. Most people expect leaders to be confident and resourceful and people of ethics. A simple definition that I like regarding leadership is that leadership's an interpersonal influence directed toward the achievement of a goal or goals. Most business people focus on goals. It's kind of hard to go into work every day and do work, busy work, and not really have a goal, a revenue goal, a sales goal, a hiring goal, a strategic goal. Most people are goal-driven, goal-oriented, as is our culture. But I want you to think about the influence you have and the level of influence you have, not only at work, but in your personal life, in your family, in your community, etc. Most people don't stop to think if they are people of influence. And quite honestly, there's really a simple way to tell if you are. If people ask for your opinion, they want to know what you think. They respect your thought process. You're a thought leader. That's a good way of knowing, of gauging, of judging that you may be a person of influence. Now, you may have your own thoughts, and they might be very healthy ones, but if people aren't asking you for your opinion, you might have to put yourself out there a little bit more, make yourself more available, join more conversations, join more dialogue on places like LinkedIn. So people start to see that you have a track record, you have a consistent thought process, and you're a subject matter expert in a particular area in life or in business. Right? So my $1,000,000 question to you is, how should leaders act? Take a couple of seconds and think about that. Or perhaps, how do you act as a leader if you're already wearing that tag of leader in your family, your community, or a certain organization, a leader in your business? Okay? I want to set a real quick distinction, though, between leaders and managers. And again, I like simple definitions. I like simple strategies because simple is easier to remember, easier to teach to other people, easier to replicate, and quite honestly, easier to execute. I've been in many organizations who had key performance indicators, KPI lists that were 20, 30, 35 items long. On most days, they never get done in a week, a month, a year, or maybe 5 years. So keep it short, keep it sweet, keep it simple. But the difference in my mind between leaders and managers, quite honestly, is this. Leaders are in place to make sure the right things get done. Leaders are in place to make sure the right things get done. Managers are in place to make sure things get done the right way. Managers are in place to make sure things get done the right way. Now, quite often in business, we take managers and we promote them to leadership when perhaps we shouldn't. A great manager doesn't necessarily make a great leader. In my mind, in my belief system, there are some overlapping skill sets and competencies, but there are many unique individual competencies. So just a sidebar note, if you're looking to pull some managers into leadership, be careful. You might be better off looking outside the organization. Pulling some managers up to leadership is great inside your organization if you and the rest of the leadership team can provide support, coaching, training, mentoring, be available to communicate, and give fair and regular feedback to those managers trying to make the leap into leadership. All right. There are thousands of books, probably tens of thousands of books, and maybe hundreds of thousands of white papers written on the subject of leadership. I've been focusing on leadership, as I mentioned earlier, for the last 15 years. To me, I boil it down to four things. Again, keep it simple. A leader's most important task, number one, create meaning and define reality. Oftentimes people go to work and they know what they're supposed to do, they understand what the company does, but that's the limit of their understanding. We want to create meaning, define reality. And reality could mean good news, bad news, or no news. Keep communicating. Check with your people, make sure they understand. Before the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a survey conducted across the United States, and most American workers who felt stress were reporting two main reasons for the stress. Number one, they went home every day to their families or significant others and said, no one's telling me what's going on at work. I don't know if we're in great shape, bad shape, average condition for our industry. I don't know if we're financially healthy. I don't know if we're being acquired, merged. I don't know if we're in the market to acquire or merge another company, a competitor. No one's telling me anything. All right. Now, some companies communicate quite well, but even their employees were going home and saying to their family and friends, even though my company is communicating to me very clearly, I'm still not sure what they want me exactly to do. Now, you might say, Larry, people are adults, and if they're fairly intelligent, they shouldn't need that much direction. Many, many, many years ago, a business mentor of mine taught me this thought process. And he said, Larry, followers, especially at work, are like sheep. They need a leader, they need a shepherd, they need someone to follow, but they have to have a sense and a belief that the shepherd, the leader, has a plan and has a sense of direction. It doesn't mean the plan won't change, and it doesn't mean the direction is perfect, but it means there's a thought process, there's a strategy, and followers are then more comfortable following the leader. So create meaning and define reality, foster understanding, develop yourself. And again, thanks for tuning in today. One of the reasons you're here, I'm assuming, is that you want to keep developing yourself. Be a hungry learner. Roughly, if you could take all the knowledge in the world and quantify it, put it into a box so you could measure it, every year the amount of knowledge in the world, everything that everyone knows, doubles. So if you ever wake up one day thinking you know everything, I'd be a little bit concerned, because there's no way any of us are going to know everything. There's plenty of learning yet to be had. All right. And then your last goal in my mind as a leader, one of your most important tasks, is to develop other people. All right. Other people will get stronger when they see your lead that you're developing yourself. Create opportunities within the organization for folks to develop themselves. Potentially offer courses, online courses like this one, brick and mortar courses at adult education or colleges. There's upskilling, there's badging, there's plenty of ways for people to get smarter and learn a little bit more. But it's your job as the leader to build a culture where not only is continuous learning encouraged, make it expected. Push the bar every day. So, cut to the chase. Why is the world of leadership changing? This is really the tip of the iceberg. There are probably dozens of reasons, but these are my favorite four. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic of 2020 really got the world to stop, changed the way we think, changed the way we look at health and healthcare, changed the way we interface with people and protect ourselves, and certainly changed the way moving forward that we're going to run our businesses. All right, there's economic uncertainty now, grave economic uncertainty. Most prognosticators are saying that it might be 18 to 24 months before the economy, at least in the United States, gets back to pre-pandemic levels. We have social tension, all right? People looking at society, people looking at community, asking questions. Why does it function this way? Why is there so much tension? Why can't there be more harmony? And most important, what can all of us as citizens do about that? But one of the drivers, I think, that really started changing the forward path, the future of leadership, if you will, in my humble opinion, is workforce composition. And by that, I mean this. For almost 2 years now, I've been speaking, writing, and lecturing and coaching consulting clients in business about workforce composition. And the fact of the matter is, we've never had a workforce with so many generations involved earning a paycheck, coming to work at the same time as we do now. But technically speaking, right now, at least in the American workforce, millennials make up the bulk, the lion's share of the workforce. And what millennials want and expect out of leaders is dramatically different than the generations before them. Millennials are saying they want access, instant access, and constant access to organizational leaders. They want to work for, be surrounded by, and learn from competent leaders. Millennials have this gift, this talent for sniffing out, if you will, leaders that aren't doing a great job or leaders that just aren't competent. And quite honestly, they don't want to work for those companies, and they won't stay if they find out that they're not getting exposure to leadership, and that leadership doesn't have a certain talent level. All right. So where do we want to be? Where do we aim to be? We always want to consider, what does our organization need? And the needs of organizations change over time. There's a big difference between what a company needs in its infancy, in startup stage, when it pretty much probably overpays for everything: people, talent, space, equipment. You've got no leverage, you've got no experience. So in the beginning of the dance, to get into the dance, you tend to overpay for everything as a fledgling company. All right. As time moves on, your company gets more mature, gets more stabilized, gets a client base, gets a revenue stream, earns better negotiating skills with vendors because you've got leverage, you've got credit, you've got a track record, you've got some history. There comes that moment in time in organizations where it's the moment of truth, and leadership either plans strategically to move forward, or, I hate to say it, falls asleep at the wheel and heads into a nosedive that, if it's bad enough, fast enough, deep enough, long enough, could harm the company or potentially put it out of business. All right, so there's that moment of truth where we make choices as leaders about the direction we're taking a company in. So what does the organization need? At those different lifestyle changes, there are really different forms and levels of leadership that are needed. All right, step back and ask yourself, what do my constituents need? And then don't necessarily think of your constituents like voters in a political sense, but think of them as your employees and the folks that could buy your products, buy your services. So you might call them customers, clients, patients, etc. That's your constituent base. If you're a publicly traded company, they're stockholders. Everyone else really falls into the category of shareholder. What you do, what your company does, impacts them in some way, shape, or form. We call those folks shareholders. And then the big picture, what does society need? We're living in some pretty stressful times in 2020. And more often than not, society is looking to the best female leaders, the best male leaders, folks who have clear thought process and clear decision-making skills and abilities with a successful track record of making those decisions to maybe provide some guidance to society moving forward. Where those three overlap, organization need, constituents need, society need, is where we want your focus to be. Where can you contribute? Where can you make the greatest impact? All right, so moving forward, I really think many leaders need to change how we think. All right, a lot of leadership still exists in silos in organizations. As I mentioned earlier, a couple of times, I've been in the consulting world now 15 years. I see a lot of folks that are still operating in outdated models just when it comes to the human interaction of people. Let's remember, folks, let's be honest. People are the greatest resource any organization will ever have. We need to make a dedicated effort of time, effort, energy, money to invest in those people and make them better. I would rather have a stronger culture with rock star people in a company any day ahead of a better organized strategy. And that's coming from a guy who helps companies figure out strategy every day. I think culture trumps strategy every day. All right. We have to embrace moving forward systems thinking. Unfortunately, the pandemic taught us just how many things are interrelated and the domino effect when things either move in a positive direction and the influence, the watershed, the ripple effect, or when things move in a negative direction. All right. We might have to shift our thinking from linear to fluid. Point A to point B and a clear roadmap of how to get there, quite honestly, has gone out the window. We need plans, we need strategies, we need rolling budgets that are fluid and flexible to probably at least anticipate three scenarios. Worst case scenario, which rarely happens, best case scenario, which also rarely happens, and somewhere in between those goalposts of the best and the worst, where you and your organization will fall into place. All right. Start asking a lot of questions if you're not asking a lot of questions now as a leader. Ask questions of other leaders. Ask questions of your constituents. We talked about those a few minutes ago. Ask plenty of questions about your coworkers, your associates, your employees, however you refer to them. They're probably in the trenches a lot deeper than you are on a daily basis, as they should be. The big mistake some leaders make is they can't get themselves out of the trenches to lead, and they really act more like managers on a daily basis. So question a lot, question everything. The rules have changed in business and will continue to change. Don't assume you know anything. Don't assume you know everything. Find out by asking a lot of questions, and certainly tap new resources. New resources are being created on a frequent basis for businesses, not just strategic business resources, funding resources, alternative funding resources, staffing resources. The whole work from home, now basically work from anywhere, remote psychology, remote mentality is really creating a new resource pool for businesses and for leaders. Make sure you tap into those. We're going to have to change how we communicate. How frequently we communicate, and quite honestly, most leaders and most organizations need to dial up that frequency. It's not about communicating when times are only bad. It's not about communicating when times are only good. It's about communicating on a regular, frequent, consistent basis. Be sincere, use your own words, don't mimic someone else's, and be clear. All right. Sometimes I find leaders like to wrap themselves around big language systems and the jargon of their industry. And we assume that everyone around us knows what we're speaking about. Fact of the matter is, on many days, people don't. So be frequent, be clear, be sincere, speak from your heart. If you don't mean it, don't say it. All right. Consider the positives and the negatives of technology, just like the technology we're using today. Yes, there are upsides, greater reach. It can help you with that frequency. There are also downsides. One of the biggest downsides I have today is I can't see you. I can't hear you. All right. I've spent my entire life since sixth grade and about the age of 11 speaking in public, watching audiences, reading their body language, interfacing with them, going off script, creating script, and embracing moments that just happen out of natural human reaction. Hard to do most of that when we're using technology, but our hands been forced to use a little bit more technology. Figure out what works. Don't go overboard with technology, and certainly whenever you can, meet with people face to face, eyeball to eyeball, in person. I certainly hope we're all going to be able to shake hands moving forward, even if it's some kind of virtual handshake. All right. But then consider what's the message or what are the messages. And as leaders, we have to be very careful with what we say, because people hang on a lot of our words and they put meaning into our words, and they also put perception into what they've heard. So what they're hearing might not necessarily be the true reality, but people think and believe what they hear in their own heads, what they want to think and believe. And it may not be the accurate, complete message that you intended. So I'm not saying be measured. I'm just saying be thoughtful when it comes to how you message in writing and in person. Right? We have to change how we make decisions. Again, many leaders still operate in silos or with a very small advisory board or a board of directors, right? I want you to move forward and teach everyone how to make a decision. Actually, it's a topic for another day that we could spend a half day on, but there's really only two types of decisions in life. Critical, mission critical decisions that you probably will be making with a very small group of people because there's not a lot of history. There could be a lot of resources spent on those decisions, and quite honestly, a higher level of risk. As a leader, pull back from the daily, everyday, lower level, or we call them level one decisions. Decisions that have history behind them, that may not involve revenue and resources, or not to a high level, and have a very low level or no level of risk. Make sure you're pulling yourself away, delegating those decisions, and then checking back and coaching people on the decisions they've made at level one. All right? We've got to empower and trust people. We can't do it all alone, especially moving forward. The world's just much too complicated. The world of life, the world of business. Now, years ago, maybe 12 years ago, empowerment was a big buzzword in the workforce. And a lot of people wanted to be empowered, but they didn't want to be held accountable. I'm here to tell you, my friends, you probably already know, those are two sides of the same coin. I don't think you can have empowerment without accountability. Wouldn't we all love that? Hold me accountable for nothing, but let me wield a lot of power. That happens in pretty rare situations. Maybe you own your own little enterprise or your own little empire, right? But we have to trust people to make those decisions that we've asked them to make. And then review the decisions that were made, review the outcomes that were intended, review the actual results, measure the gap, figure out the difference, learn lessons, and move forward. All right. We have to define our objectives. For as much time as I spend with clients defining a strategy, it really starts with what are our objectives? What do we want to accomplish? And then if we think we can, we start to hammer out ways to get there, paths to get there. But you would never get on a bus, I would hope, that would pull up at the corner of the street, had nothing in the placard above the driver's head. The door would open, the driver would look at you and say, just get on, trust me, we're going somewhere, and so far it's worked. All right? You want to get on the bus that says, we're going to 127 Main Street, and it's going to take us 19 minutes to get there. As always, when decision making, gauge the risks, the economic risks, the people risks, the risks to your reputation as a person, as a leader, and to a company if the decisions you've made don't go well. All right? But don't paralyze yourself. Take action. It's been said in the leadership world, Colin Powell used to say, when he was the general in the United States, when your gut tells you you've got about 75% of the data you need to collect to make a decision, make a decision. Because if you wait for 20 more percentage points and more data to come in to take you to the 95th percentile of a feeling you've got a lot of data collected, two things are probably going to happen. You will statistically make the same decision you would have made at that 75% level of data collected, or you're going to wait so long, especially in business, that one of your competitors is going to move right around you, get to the market, and take an action that you sat around thinking about taking. And I often hear people say, well, we were going to do that. We were pretty close to getting around to do that, but they beat us to it. All right. So don't paralyze yourself. Bill Gates coined that phrase, paralysis analysis. All right, or analysis paralysis. Don't freeze yourself from taking action by thinking so hard for so long. And then, of course, evaluate your outcomes, because what happens is really never, ever going to be what you planned. There's going to be some shift. There's going to be some variations, some of it for reasons you can control, some of it for reasons you can't. Evaluate, make some tweaks, and move on. I think the most important part of the message today is that we really have to change how we show people that we care. All right, and for decades, maybe hundreds of years, the struggle with leadership, the struggle with business is some leaders and business people have pushed back and pushed away on things that they called soft skills. Honestly, the term soft skills makes me cringe. I believe they're critical skills and we need to sharpen them, and we need to measure them to the best of our ability, and we need to implore them and use them every single day in business and in life. So I want you to create or refine your company's mission statement, vision statement, ethics, and customer service statements. Now, you may have some of those, you may have none of those. Quite honestly, it's my belief that the people that know the most about mission statements drive for delivery services, because those women and those men every day see hundreds of thousands of framed mission statements in lobbies of businesses. But if you went inside the business and asked employees, workers in their own words to explain the company mission, my bet is they can't. All right, that means that's not that thought process is not being articulated often enough. We have to put people first. I've said it before. I believe people are the greatest resource any organization, any company will ever have. Make heavy investments there. All right, use your heart, use your head, use your brain. Practice empathy. Some of the most successful organizations in the world that are businesses are that successful because they know how to practice empathy. All right. Now, don't be confused. Empathy doesn't mean you walk around and say to everyone you meet, I understand how you feel. You may not, you probably don't, because you can't have possibly experienced everything that everyone around you has experienced in life. Empathy really means I'm willing to listen. and I sincerely care, and I want to hear you out. And if I can provide guidance or assistance, I will. And if I can't, hopefully I can connect you to someone or some entity in my network where you can get some solutions that you need, maybe to some problems that you're having in your life. It could be professional, they could be workplace-based problems, it could be personal problems. But empathetic leaders moving forward will be the most successful leaders. And quite honestly, ladies and gentlemen, surveys are showing us and have been showing us for a number of years that this is one of the areas of leadership where, quite honestly, female leaders outperform male leaders. So gentlemen, myself included, we need to take a page out of the successful female leader playbook, and we have to get much better with our empathetic skills. All right? And then again, use appropriate technology. It's great to send somebody an email. We all get thousands of them, and there's a time and a place for all of that. And it's great to send texting. How about sending an old-fashioned, handwritten note with a stamp on it to someone at home? Hey, Fred, thanks for doing a great job. Appreciate your effort. Appreciate the time away from your family. Appreciate the time with your family while you were working remotely. Whatever the case may be. Technology is great. Artificial intelligence is phenomenal. It's going to do wonderful things. But we're still talking about somewhat of a robotic mentality that cannot totally replace your heart, your gut, and your brain as a human being. So use appropriate technology. All right, and ask yourself, as a leader, how do you think your coworkers perceive you? How does your family perceive you? How do your friends perceive you? How about your peers in your industry? How about your followers at work, in the community, at home? How does your community perceive you? Are you a person of your word? Are you a smoke and mirrors person? Quite honestly, your family's probably going to give you the most raw feedback because I'm hoping they love you, and that might be the feedback that's very difficult to digest. So remember, practice makes. I heard you say perfect. And I really want you to consider the fact that that sentiment, that statement might actually be wrong. Practice makes permanent. So as you're growing as a leader and you're honing your leadership skills and competencies and abilities, I want you to practice and get coached and mentored by the best leaders you have access to. And with the world of technology, you've got access to quite a few leaders, and some of them are really talented, really great people. All right. I fuel my own leadership growth by reaching out to people that are known in an industry or known in society or known in a community, folks that, I've put up on a pedestal, if you will, in the world of leadership, some of them even locally in my own business marketplace. And I pick those brains because I want to learn from the best of the best. You should want to learn from the best of the best as well. So remember, practice makes permanent. Now, have an out-of-body experience tonight when you're laying in bed. Leave your body, hover over the bed, look down at yourself, and ask yourself this simple question. Knowing what I know about myself, knowing what I know about my leadership skills and abilities, knowing about my hunger or my lack of hunger to be a learner moving forward, would I follow myself if I had the choice? If I were in an organization or as a member of my family or a member of my community, a member of society, would I follow myself or does my game need some work? I hope this was helpful information, as I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the presentation. Thanks for being here. Feel free to contact me at leadershiplarry@gmail.com or the number on your screen, 716-901-4352. I also invite you to share and listen to my podcasts on Spotify and Google. And please visit my Speaking of Strategy website, Google it, or speakingofstrategy.org. All the best to you in your quest to become the best leader you can be.